Hi there once again. Thank you for tuning in. Bless you all. Um, as we have sadly lost Copeland in these recent by-elections, as Copeland is a pro-nuclear area, their livelihood relies on nuclear energy. Yet I've heard that Sellafield itself is going anyway, and if Labour were a pro-nuclear party, we would lose a lot more than Copeland. We would lose every potential Green voter who know that their close to the heart policies will only ever get a chance of getting heard in Parliament through a Corbyn-led Labour Party. Yes, it used to be an official Labour policy to be pro-nuclear, but things change. In truth, the Labour Party has brought forward all of these big ideas in British politics. It's the British Labour Party who introduced free education, the NHS, the welfare state, the state pensions, and the occupational pensions. Later, it was the Labour government who introduced concepts like health and safety at work and legislation to outlaw sexual and racial discrimination. It was Labour who introduced the minimum wage. The Labour Party has had its doubts, but ended up largely enthusiastic of the benefits the European Union could bring for the working man: minimum working hours per week and minimum holidays. The Labour Party has in the past embraced issues like the nationalisation of utilities such as water, gas, electricity and the railways. The present Labour Party is embracing such thoughts again. Who can really believe that the present systems in energy, water and rail are really working? The systems are grossly confusing and riddled up rip-offs, and they can only seem to be to benefit the shareholders. Only those ideologically opposed could defend the current system. Copeland was just one result. It's a result the establishment-owned media pounced on and magnified way out of proportion. Apparently the Tories put leaflets out in Copeland lying about Corbyn wanting to shut down their local power plant, which is the biggest employer in the area. I think the Tories threw everything they had at these two areas, and Stoke was a massive Euroleave vote area, so Corbyn, a Remain campaigner, hanging on to Stoke was actually a massive result. If only the media would be honest. Corbyn has won 5 major by-elections and 4 mayoral elections, including taking London from the Tories. Pretty good without the support of the corporate media and during Labour infighting as well. You must study both sides of everything, no matter how personally uncomfortable. If someone tells you not to study the other side of your beliefs, that's a huge red flag and it means you should do exactly that. And when you're feeling low about the Copeland result, think, did the Tories come third in Stoke? And how about the Tories' majority getting wiped out in Richmond? Time to push this. The Tories lost a safe seat where they have had more than a 23,000 majority in, whereas Labour lost a seat with only a 2,500 majority. Yet Labour are the party in crisis, so they tell us. Get rid of Corbyn, it's all about his fault, so they tell us. So where's the call for Maggie to Theresa May? This to leave and to to get rid of her. This is how our biased newspapers are. So I say ignore it. I say where there is war, study love. Where there is fear, study calm. Do as Corbyn would do. There are two sides to us human beings who think and are aware that we think through dualism. Where we think or are taught, I am bad, I am unkind, those over there are out to get me, I hate those others who are different to me. We must change those thoughts to be able to change the issues that cause them. The change starts with self, so change those thoughts into I am not always bad, I'm not always unkind. Question who has told you those things over and over again? That those over there who seem to be out to get you, why are they hating? What is their reasoning? What could it be that they can't handle? Could it be the truth? They can't handle the truth, and they're not used to peace, honesty and harmony, and most of all, the real truth. The problem is, so many tell us that when we're thinking positive, good thoughts about the world and about each other, that we're naive and that we're not critical thinkers, that we're blinkered with rose-coloured glasses on. But I say those who think dark thoughts and spread all the bad news in the press, it's they who are not critical thinkers. They're not leaders of any new bright ideas. They're followers of what they've been shown. But what they're shown is the symptom of bad politics and bad leaders whose agenda is not peace but self and personal gain and accolade. We're stuck where we are believing that the negative is the reality because negative thinking is accepted as the reality of this failing system. Failing because it serves those who want to privatise it and sell it off to the rich so that they can make profits. We've become used to everything going wrong and we have got used to expecting the worst outcomes. We see these things as more real and so accept them as our reality more and more and label ourselves the same ones for seeing reality as it is. We accept this as sanity more than we can accept decency and care for each other. And we call decency and care for each other madness. People who still believe in love and care being the answer to this imbalanced so-called reality we have gotten so used to are wrong. They have gone way beyond being balanced and see everything with the expectation of the worst happening. The worst outcome, such as war, is now seen as normal and stagnant, whilst any positive result is seen as temporary and fleeting. Truth is, the positive changes always comes after negative waves. When the positive comes and the negative falls and becomes less, and we are heading for that big positive change, there are where the last 20 years or so have been full of negativity and fear and wars. So now, because we have gone so far to the opposite extreme, it now requires us to bring in the positive to bring us back to balanced thinking. There has been so much depression because people are stuck and do not believe that even balance is possible. To believe in balance, let alone the positive, that requires us to believe in the impossible and that the so-called impossible is possible. It requires that belief to make it happen. So let's think about some truths about ourselves rather than the lies that we tell ourselves. Let's look at some realities that can make a difference in how we think. I'm not always good, and that's right, there's a truth for all of us in that. Sometimes I have bad thoughts and feelings, and right there's another truth, and we can accept you can't always be pure good all of the time when people are unfairly critical of you. But if you portray yourself as pure light and the whole time, then the fact is what you're telling the people that are telling you that that's not the truth are actually telling you the truth, aren't they? It's you that is deluded in that when you say that you're purely good all the time. You are deluded, you are the liar. Nobody is pure good and with no bad thoughts. Yet the newspapers will criticise every wrong word said of any individuals they have decided to use as a target because they are seen as good and decent people. And they will always use the people who appear the nicest, those that are most balanced, because they can't have it that he is a decent man. He has to be seen as being wrong and a deluded liar, so they'll pick on every little thing and make it appear huge. This is where many people look upon me often and say that I'm naive with my thoughts and see me as someone who is striving to be purely good and pure light, but I'm not doing that. That's others' judgment of decent people these days, and I'm in my own self-inquiry seeking for balance, yet I'm aware that those who look at the world and read their newspapers view this world as hostile, so hostile that they will vote to annihilate races of people, kill thousands, bomb homes. So let's put ourselves for a moment into the shoes of the negative thinker, because this is what the people of this world is now being brainwashed into thinking and being. Let's be the one who has now been so brainwashed by the media into thinking those people over there believed in hatred and wickedness and evil, and they therefore contain no good whatsoever. You have never met with or spoken to any of those people over there. In fact, I'm going to tell you, as the newspapers tell you, that those over there, if I were to even dare to talk to any of them to discuss a possibility of balance between us, then you would believe that I have been colluding with terrorists. So called because they have been portrayed this way because they're different. We, on one hand, see our world as progressive with gay rights, black people's matters, women's equality, inclusive of everyone regardless of how they look or pray. But it's someone who acts with integrity and decency, if they're seen talking to those who are different and think differently for whatever reason, and we don't know what that reason is because we ourselves don't mix with such people, of course we don't. We impose a story that we have been told onto that picture. This person, who we believe is decent, is talking to them. There must be something in it for him. We impose that view because that's how we relate to others. We don't befriend or talk with people who don't offer us anything in return. So why would this decent individual do so? Can't have different, can we? But I thought we were so progressive. Do you see where I'm coming from here? In fact, I've been told that these people might have a knife ready to chop my head off or bomb to blast me to death. What reason would anyone go to such lengths? Is it they are unheard, unable to be what they want to be because they have been that we have imposed so much negative belief about them onto them that they're fighting to be what they really want to be and what they believe themselves to be? And they'll die for that, just as you will die for your freedoms when you send your children off as soldiers to war, having taught them patriotism for their country. No less a religion than any person's religion belief is willing to die for their beliefs. And so, in response, it is believed to be sanity that I should agree to my government going to them and slaughtering them all first before they slaughter me. And I must feel terror. The thing that astounds me is that the very people who are teaching me and my children to create more good soldiers out of them, all of this about those over there, and it's those people who will point me out as insane for wanting to know why anyone would be so angry that they will die for their belief, that they are the good guys going over there to kill the bad. They will be the first to tell me about how religion spreads hate and causes us to live in fear of a God by any other name that they may or may not believe in. Our soldiers and we are told how this God will punish us if we do this or that wrong, whilst telling our soldiers that we will punish them and put them in jail if they don't do this or that if they do this or that wrong rather. They will be put into prison if they desert. And if I talk to Muslims and call them my friend, then I am to some people a terrorist sympathizer. Really? I mean, this is the kind of thing that's, say, of Jeremy Corbyn, isn't it? When he was involved in trying to bring peace to certain areas of the world, a terrorist sympathizer he was called for talking to those that they have labelled that for holding a different belief. Those in Northern Ireland who were wrongfully jailed for being terrorists, whilst the papers put on the spin that he is a part of that same group, rather than someone trying to bring peace to the situation. And having heard the story of these real people who were wrongly imprisoned still gets labelled a terrorist sympathiser today. Frankly, I'd rather have a leader who will converse with other leaders to bring about peace in the world than one who refuses to discuss peace with any of those people, but instead orders for tanks and arms and bombs to go slaughter civilians and children. Is that the sane way to do it, really? I understand that to others I do not see what they see, and that is killing and slaughter is necessary, and they don't see what I see, and that is killing and slaughter is unnecessary. Where people have the power to discuss and create agreements and compromise, then they should be allowed to do that without the ridicule, the name calling from those who are still stuck in their own insanity to get it, that they are part of the problem. And someone like Jeremy Corbyn is a part of the solution. In fact, he is the solution. See, their reality is different to mine because I don't see anyone as purely bad as much as I know I'm not purely good. In this way of thinking, you who think that way are giving those people a lot of power and yourself very little. We're all stuck in this categorizing of one another. You are either this or you're that. No in-betweens, no people out there seeking for the honest, truthful balance that is the reality in all of us, except for a certain few, such as us, of course, the murderous, evil psychopath, who is born without any conscience at all. And whilst there's a handful of these types of people, on the other hand, there are those like my friend Anne, who's in Uganda as we speak with the orphans, who runs a nursery for them where on her pension, there are those individuals who function beyond the call of duty, beyond balance, to the other extreme. And the truth is, there are more people doing good out there today in the world than there is doing bad and doing harm. There are thousands who did not witness bombing and someone getting harmed today. Everything that we are is split into so many parts so that we can understand them. One concept is the ego self and the soul self. We're all ruled by the ego. To understand ego consciousness, we have to know the true soul self. To understand the true soul self, we have to be separated from it. Thus we experience the ego self, but we have to have come so far from the true self that we're mostly in the ego. This ego is so judgmental, whilst the true soul self is accepting of others. The ego self believes itself to be a victim, whilst the true self takes responsibility for creating one's own experience. The ego self keeps conflict and drama alive, while the true self forgives. The ego self is always complaining while the true self is grateful. The ego self focuses on past or future. The true self remains ever present. The ego self feels superior or inferior to others, and the true self knows we're all equal. The ego self is complex and intellectual, and the true self is simple wisdom. The ego self is stressed and worried about the future, and the true self is relaxed and trusting of the divine. The ego self is stressed, and sorry, I've already read that. The ego self feels alone in the world, and the true self knows everything, including self, to be one with everything. The ego self needs to prove worth through work and service, and the true self feels loved and accepted for who they are. The ego self feels small and never feels good enough. The true self feels the innocence and greatness of one's soul. The ego self gives one authority over the other. The true self trusts oneself and makes intuition the new authority. The ego self is ruled by time, and the true self trusts the flow of life. The ego self does things only for the approval of others, and the true self does things to please one's own higher consciousness. The ego self needs constant attention and validation. The true self is secure in one's own ability to truly listen to others. The ego self is uncomfortable to be alone, and the true self is comfortable in one's own company. The ego self takes one's self too seriously, and the true self is able to laugh at oneself. So don't worry if people think you're crazy. Know that you have that kind of intoxicating insanity that lets others people dream outside of the lines and become who they're destined to be. Recognize that same insanity within all of us. And, when people like Jeremy Corbyn, when they show up in the world, recognize that he's trying to allow us all to become what we are destined to be. And that is just balance, to be a better person and know the truth amongst the lies that we're told. Love on a physical level comes from nature, as giving of sustenance is the source of nourishment, as a means of keeping body and soul together to enable growth. On a spiritual level, love comes from nurture and the spiritual giving of care, and the information to enable creativity and spiritual growth when we have both nature's love, physical, and spiritual love, nurture. We thrive on both levels. From the beginning of our evolution, nature has nurtured us, and as creatures have evolved to human level, nurture has become a loving act that is inherent within all of us. And as we evolve further, we damage the true meaning of love by relating to love as being a romantic love alone. And when we're hurt in this type of love, we become afraid to give this type of love and receive this type of love. This will affect our genetic coding. As we continue this evolutionary journey, we will and are becoming more and more like the robotic machines, feeling in case rather in our fear to give these machines feeling in case they take over. And as we too forget the true meaning of love, we are losing something precious that is uniquely human, and that is our ability to both offer through us nature's gifts as well as nurture our offspring. Therefore, it is more than a right. It is a responsibility to remember the true meaning of our unconditional love that we offer to our offspring, so they grow up to be balanced individuals who know the difference and know their personal power exists within themselves, so that they don't have to go off to war as soldiers, doing as they're told. And as someone like Jeremy Corbyn knows this to be a truth in himself, and so we don't give up. We are here to heal ourselves from the pain of disappointment from romantic love, and to continue to love anyway and put love out there in the world to each other unconditionally, because the ending of love will create a cold, unfeeling world where love will only be seen in the animals if the human race doesn't manage to kill them off along with themselves. In their race for greater technology that functions like human, but without care or feeling or empathy for where they came from and how. In answer to the question, is it a right to be loved? It is not only a right, it is a responsibility for us to preserve the meaning of love, to enable it to continue to flourish in our lives. And this alone will end hatred and wars that would wipe out not only the human race, but also the reason the human race is here, to feel and to experience love. And that, my friends, is not some crazy notion or fantasy. We are all the bearers of love and peace, and we are all blessed with the kind of intelligence to know that if we want peace in the world, we must vote for the leader who will strive for peace. And we will. So bless you all. Thank you once again for listening to me, and I really do hope that we keep on voting and getting behind our leader, because we really desperately need that man to be our Prime Minister, the person that will lead us and create the kind of world that we really, really deserve, rather than what we've been experiencing so far. Bless you all for listening. Bye for now.